Welcome back to Mako Plays Satisfactory. So, last episode we made some good progress here, kind of refactoring our basic iron production, using the blueprint designs we'd created for things like smelters and constructor blocks. So we've got this ground floor here full of smelters, and we've got some spare capacity there with this miner if we do need to drag in any more iron at any point. And then we've got a couple of floors of basic iron production, doing things like plates and rods around this floor. And then some screw production on this floor. And then all of that's feeding up to this top area where we're doing the slightly more advanced iron products of reinforced iron plates, rotors, and modular frames. And we're targeting 10 of those per minute each. That should get there. It may just still be kind of filling and balancing itself out. But yeah, we've got reasonable amounts of those being produced there now. So, what that unlocks is our ability to go and make some progress up this here tech tree. In terms of the main milestones, we can get some things. I've highlighted Mark II miners as something that we should get to sooner rather than later. And then it's going to also let us start to look to those space elevator parts up in the top right, because we've only got a couple of nodes left here to unlock in terms of the hub tech tree. Then we need to start to make these smart plates and versatile frameworks and smart wiring, which are slightly more complex builds. So I think we've probably got enough stuff to get this tier, which will give us miners Mark II, as well as some slightly more complex parts here that we need to start thinking about. So let's do that now.
Milestone reached. Logistics can be improved with a larger storage container, enhanced conveyor belt efficient.
Oh, I didn't mean to skip that. Oh well. I thought say something about enhanced conveyor belt efficiency. I didn't think we got a new belt tier. Yeah. No, that sounds like a misnomer to me. Okay. So yeah, what have we got left on here from this tier then? We've got vehicle transport for trucks and tractors and truck stations, which we're not producing too high volumes of stuff too far away from each other right now, but I feel like probably when we get into the realms of advanced steel production, doing some of this stuff like encased industrial beams and especially heavy modular frames, we may need to be using factories that are further away from our base, so we may want to consider truck transport for those things. And then hypertubes, the more spread out our factories become, the more of a chore it is to go on foot between them. So it'll definitely be handy to set up some amount of hypertubes or launchers or something like that to help us get around a little bit faster. Really, next priority right now, though, I think, is to start thinking about those space elevator parts. So let's get that up on our to-do list. So, what do we need? We need 500 smart plates, 500, I think the middle one are versatile frameworks, and then 100 smart wires. Smart plating we had to do for the first tier, but we didn't set up permanent production of. Reinforced iron plates and rotors, we're producing tons of these. We're producing 10 of these per minute. And we need 500 of those, so if we get that set up and use all of our rotors into that, assuming we don't need them for anything else right now, then set that away, and that'll take 50 minutes to automate, which isn't too bad, really. Spend an hour automating that stuff to get us to the next phase of Space Elevator sounds pretty good. Once the build's up and running, of course. What's next? Versatile frameworks. Those take modular frames, which again we're producing 10 per minute of. And steel beams, 12 steel beams. I'm not sure how many we're producing right now. That makes 2 of those per minute, so if it was 10 per minute there, 25 minutes of that running, if my maths is right. And then, what was the other one? Wiring, automated wiring. takes cables. I don't think we're producing cables in ridiculously high volumes right now, but we can certainly spare 20 per minute. Stators we haven't had up until now. I think we just unlocked those with that last tier. So we need to start thinking about stators, which require steel pipes, which we are producing, but again not in particularly high volumes, and wire, which again we're producing not in silly volumes though. But we only need to make 100 of those, so if we set ourselves up to make, what, 5 stators per minute, then we could make 5 automated wires per minute, and then it's just going to take 20 minutes of automation there. That's assuming we can spare 100 cable, which, if we're not doing that already, I'm sure we can easily get to that. Wires and cables aren't really going to be a challenge for us right now. I think what the limiting factor here, in fact let's get stators on that to-do list then, because we don't have that yet. I think what the limiting factor is going to be here is our steel production isn't particularly huge. We set up a pretty basic, pretty low volume steel production, which has met our needs up until now. But we're getting to that point where that's going to start to become a bottleneck, especially as we start to think about some of the new parts that we have unlocked. Like, for example, encased industrial beams. We probably need those for the next hub milestone, but certainly we're going to need lots of those in the relatively near future, because those are going to be used for our tier 4 belts, so we want to start thinking about upscaling production of steel to accommodate the fact that we're going to be doing most of our belt work using steel products going forward. So let's go and take a look at that steel production, which is over here past our power plant. So steel, the standard recipe takes coal, which we're bringing up from below here from 2 miners by the looks of it. Yes, because these are normal coal nodes. And the other thing it takes is iron, which we're feeding in from this side here. From a pure node. Okay, so at the minute we're taking 120 per minute of each of those, running it into 3 foundries. Foundries are 45 in, 45 out, so must be slightly underproducing here, yeah, and I wouldn't expect it to be as low as that. I would expect us to be doing 40 per minute in each of these with our 120 of resource. I wonder if I accidentally used too low a tier of belt. I did. Oh, that was silly of me. We're only dragging up 60 of these per minute, so let's fix that. Oh, that's a Mark 2. Our lift is a Mark 1, so that needs to be a Mark 2. Oh, this should all be Mark 2 stuff. Oops. Okay, so once... that'll need to upgrade as well. Oh, I put Mark 2s there, but not on the lift and the main belt in. Silly of me. So yeah, anyway, if this was running as it should have been, we'd be getting 40 steel ingots per minute from each of these. So that would give us 120 per minute, feeding into constructors. This one making steel pipes, targeting 50 per minute, using 75, so that would give us 45 left to go down the line. Wanting 60 per minute to make 15 beams. In fact, this one's going to be almost completely starving. Yeah, okay. I wonder if I came back at some point and tweaked this. Anyway, the long and the short of it is we can do much better than this now. We have belts that can carry more capacity. We have Mark II miners, which double the output of this. So on this normal node, a Mark I miner at kind of base clock speed does 60 per minute. If we upgrade that to a Mark II miner, it's going to go straight to 120 per minute. And we'll still be able to overclock it if we add power shards. So really the only thing that's limiting us with what we can do here is going to be belt capacity. So while we're on Mark III belts, we can work on the assumption that we're going to drag in 270 coal and 270 iron from up there. And that means that we need more foundries, which means we can feed more constructors, which means we can get more steel beams and steel pipes. So I think a full-on tear it down, refactor it, and rebuild it is in order here. What I'm wondering is, do we build for our current limited throughput of 270 per minute, or should we expand with the assumption that we're going to be getting towards the Mark IV belts, which will let us do 480 per minute before too long? And I think we should build it for future-proof it for Mark IV. It's only going to mean placing an extra few foundries and constructors. And then it just means that we don't have to really tear it down and rebuild it more than once. We can just have some machines sitting idle or sitting underfed for a while. I think that's the way that I'm going to do it. So let's get that on there as a goal for this episode as well. To refactor our steel production. Is there anything else we need to consider right now? I think we get the steel up and running so that we can. That's largely to serve the immediate goal of letting us do what we want to with stators. And then we'll get some assemblers set up for the space elevator parts, which, depending how we get on today, that might be this episode or that might be a follow-up. So yeah, I'm going to tear down this steel factory, going to do some thinking about how to plan it and stuff, and we'll check back on that shortly. Alright, here we are with some progress. So, we're still in the same place as the original steel production was, but we've tore down the smaller run of foundries and constructors that we had, and instead this is what foundry support for our future Tier 4 Mark IV belts will look like. So right now we're bringing in 270 iron ore and 270 coal here. That's using these Mark II miners. That's on the pure node, so I think I maybe only had to slightly overclock this one. Let's take a quick look. Yeah, so one power shard in there takes it up from the default 240 to 270, which is the max we can handle on one belt at the moment. Down here, where previously we had two Mark I miners running on the normal coal nodes, I've instead gone with the Mark II miner on one coal node, and then I've almost fully overclocked this one. Now that we have overclocking, that's running up to at 225% to give us our 270 per minute. And that just means we've got another coal node free here for doing more stuff in future. So while we can support it like this, this costs us a little more power than having two miners down, but it keeps a coal node free, and coal nodes are not particularly common. So I think that's the right play there. I spent a little bit of time with the blueprint maker to put together this design here. So this is a foundry in the middle. It's the same sort of thing as we were doing before, with one belt running into the top and one belt running along the bottom. All of the inputs running from the left side, to the right side. Oh no, I'm so stuck. There we go. Yeah, all fed from the left into the right, and then runs into the foundry. We've got Mark III belts here feeding the inputs, or feeding the main line, sorry. And then Mark II belts feeding the inputs, just in case we ever do want to overclock any of these. And then on the output side, again running a Mark II belt here with a line that will run right to left down here. You'll notice these aren't all belted together, and that's because with blueprints, when you place them down, this is about as far as you can go with belts and connections and that sort of thing. I mean, you can certainly extend further left and right. What you can't do is place one of these down next to an existing other blueprint design. And let's say I had extended the belt on the blueprint out to, say, here. The blueprints can't snap together. You can't place one down here. Even if the belt's long enough that it looks like it should go into the splitter or the merger, it just doesn't connect automatically. So the best middle ground I've found is this design here, where we have our belts extending at least far enough that we don't have to do too much jumping and rerouting and stuff, and it should be nice and quick to connect everything together. Similarly for the power poles, I have a tendency to do one power pole for every 2 machines, but to work that into a blueprint design, it would mean having to do a blueprint with 2 machines on there, and kind of as we found with the smelters and constructors and stuff like that, sometimes you don't need that, sometimes you need 9 of these or whatever. So it seems, you know, it's not too costly in terms of resources to add 1 extra power pole so that they're just dedicated 1 each. It does mean that the power's connected at least to the machine, so all we have to do is go boop, 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 and so on. So yeah, this is future-proofed for 480. Right now with the 270 that we're going to bring in, we're just going to use this first run of foundries. Yeah. So we've got 270 of each resource coming in, and they take 45 per minute at the base clock speed. That's our 6, which is our back row here. When we get up to 480 belts, then we'll be able to incorporate that front row. And in fact, I thought it was 11 point something, but it's 10 point something, so we can just get rid of one of these from the design. And what we'll do is just run, when we get to that point, we'll take our existing run of belts that we're going to set up down here, and then we'll just loop it round and run it back down the line that way. Should be multi-assembling or dismantling here. Alright, cool. So, having placed down these blueprints, then we just need to do the belt work and the power connection. Let's do that now. Our iron ore to the top. Our coal running along the bottom here. And then given kind of the size of this build, I've already extended this bottom platform a little bit. We could in theory just keep extending the platform out to the front here, and just go further in that direction. But I think what we'll do here is just reach the end of this run here, everything will feed in, it'll run itself back down this way. And then I think we'll just place a lift at the end and add another floor to this area. So we'll just run our line out here, which will have our 270 iron ingots. Add another floor above here for construction of the iron plates and pipes. Steel plates and pipes, not iron. Let's get power going here. I did set a recipe of these on steel as well as part of the blueprints. With foundries right now, the only other thing we've got is an alternative copper recipe, which we're not going to use very much, I don't think. So pretty much anytime we put a foundry down, it's going to be steel. Or at least that's a sensible default, right? It's not like a constructor where there's like, 20 different recipes that we can choose from. So our coal is coming in, but our iron looks like it probably doesn't have power yet. Oh, it must have... We must have had some iron on the line already or something like that, because some of these have already been making Steel ingots. Meanwhile, why would you have no power? Oh, because I haven't hooked these up. That's silly of me. Yeah, so that's one bit of progress. The other thing that I did while I was in the mode of blueprinting was I did a similar sort of thing for an assembler design, just with the two inputs, one high, one low, and the one output. So when we're doing anything with assemblers, we can do this same thing of just drop them down like this and then just hook up the belts and the power to speed things up going forward. Those still don't seem to be producing over this side of things, and I'm not sure why. They look like they have inputs and outputs. What do you mean no power? Did I just... What? Oh, I missed a connection. There we go. Alright, hopefully all those lights are now green. Yeah, well, we've got smoke coming out of every machine there, so that's what we want. So all of these are just spares for the time being, but we'll come back here. In fact, let's make a note to ourselves. Help future us out with a little bit of organisation here. Say... Incidentally, there doesn't seem to be a way to have the signs default do anything other than the main colour. Maybe if I change the colour actually on here and then save it, will that work? Let's see. I wonder if this is going to mess anything else up in the factory that uses that default orange. No, enter a new name for the preset. No, it's not a new preset. I wanna change this. I'm only wondering about this because I do this literally every time I place a sign is come in here and change it to the blue that we're using. Let's have a look at the customizer in a second. Alright, anyway. 270IN/70 code. And let's 5x foundry for Mark 4. Let's upgrade to 480. Steel ingots. Hopefully that'll make sense to us when we come back here later on. Right, customizer. See, we've got foundation swatch, factory swatch, and stuff like that. None of this is like, here's a preset for signs, though. I wonder if we do that, if we load the primary, save it, it's called fix it primary. I wonder if it does it based on the name, and if we just go fix it primary, does that do anything? Nope. Alright. Guess we'll just change it every time then. Okay, so next step, really, we need another floor on this building, and we need to do some thinking about the fact that we've got 270 steel ingots coming out here. What ratio of the two steel products do we want? We've got steel pipes, which take 30 in and give us 20 out. And we need some amount of steel pipes for our stator build, which is why we're doing this in the first place. 3:1. And we have steel beams, which is a really rubbish ratio of 60 in for 15 out. I wonder if there's a better steel recipe out there that we should go hunting for before we do this next stage of the build. Let's hold that thought. Let me do a little bit of looking up alternative recipes here to see if there's anything that I do want to find and build with. We'll come back with a second floor built on this building, and I'll do the conveyor lifting up, and then we'll go from there, figure out how many constructors we want to make for each part of that recipe. And wire is the other thing that we need for that stator build, so do some hunting around for iron or copper. We have a recipe for each. Iron is generally the more common thing on the map. Oh, not really near here. A few of them over there, that's close enough that we could factor into the same build. Or do we have copper anywhere near? There apparently is a copper node right there. Alright, that seems like a bit of a no-brainer then. We will use this for making the copper wire. And we'll have our steel pipes and copper wire combined together to make stators. This is going to be a little bit of a mini... Oops. Fell through the world there. What's pure normal node as well. Okay. So yeah, this will be a little bit of a mini steel and stator factory. We'll run things on belts down to towards our base. I don't think I want to go to the effort of belting all of that past the iron factory into main storage right now, because our main storage is not going to stay there for the long term. At some point we're going to tackle a project of have a main storage somewhere accessible from all directions, I guess, which means some amount of elevated with major kind of buses running into it, and near some transport in terms of truck stations or train stations as well. That's kind of the long-term vision. I'm not going to worry too much right now if we just belt our steel stuff, continue to belt that over to those containers there, and if we add status in there as well, that's probably fine for the time being. Alright, yeah, let me do some looking into alternative recipes and build us an extra floor, and then we'll check back in. Okay, a little bit of progress here. So first off, we've got this new copper build. So that's claimed that normal copper node over here. So we're getting 60 ore into 2 smelters to give us 60 ingots, into 4 constructors, which is a 1:2 ratio. So we're ending up with 120 copper wire per minute. We'll use that in a moment for our stators. On this side of things, added the platform, and we're feeding our steel ingots, our 270 steel ingots per minute up there. I did a little bit of research for alternative steel recipes, and it turns out there aren't any, which was something that I didn't really expect. So yeah, there are, to be clear, there are alternative recipes at this stage in the game in making steel ingots. So you don't necessarily have to take iron ore and coal, or don't necessarily have to do it to these ratios and that sort of thing. There's a couple of recipes for that. What there aren't are any alternative recipes for the next stage of things, which is the construction into steel beams and steel pipes, which is pretty surprising. I don't get the impression there's a lot of stuff in the game where there's only one recipe, but that is true here. So that means that we are stuck working with this ratio 4:1 for steel beams, and stuck working with this ratio 3:2 for steel pipes. So, yeah, I did a bit of looking into the alternative recipes for steel ingots. It doesn't seem like any of them are particularly better than the default one, and they use stuff that we don't have access to, and we haven't found those, so not going to make a change here. What it does seem like, though, the trick in this, in min-maxing steel, is for further down the construction tree, for want of a better word, when we're talking about things like encased beams, for example. The default recipe uses steel beams, which are very it's a poor yield from the steel. The alternate recipe for this still uses concrete but uses steel pipes instead. So that seems like a much better deal. So I think we're going to find that before we set up any encased beam production. And I get the impression that's maybe true for some stuff further down the steel tree as well. So it seems like the trick is in maximizing later downstream recipes to use more steel pipes and use less or fewer steel beams, because this 4-to-1 is just bad. It's a bad time. This 3-to-2 is preferable. In terms of our needs for the moment, though, all we really need is to get our stator construction going, and stators do use those steel pipes, even with the default recipe, so that's good. And we probably want to have, if we have a spare handful of steel left over, maybe funnel that just into one constructor, making steel beams. We need steel beams at the moment for Mark III belts, but hopefully anyway, pretty soon, we're going to go beyond that. We're going to get up to Mark IV belts, start making them with encased beams instead. So yeah, I don't think we need tons and tons of steel beams on an ongoing basis. And we've got a nearly full storage container for anything that we're building with Mark III belts for now. So I think so long as we keep a little trickle of production going to keep this topped up, then we're good. And I think the rest of this steel production can predominantly focus on steel pipes. So, I had that extra platform up at the top, so we're going to hop up there and get some constructors going to make use of our 270 steel ingots. Okay, I'm just going to double check my maths on this. 30 per minute gives us 20 per minute. 30 times 8 gives us 240. 20 times 8 gives us 160. And that leaves us 30 left over. Which means that this is going to be running at 50% capacity, only getting 30 per minute. So not making... There we go. Knew there was something up there. That is 7.5 beams per minute. But that's fine. As I say, we don't need steel beams in great volumes. We do for running Mark III belts, but we've got nearly a full container there. So I feel like this is the right play to just double down on pipe construction for the time being. So that's pipes done. What do we need to do next? We're going to be assemblers here. I think that's where I want it. Yep, that looks good. So we're going to be running in copper wire over from this platform into one of these. We're going to be running our pipes. We're going to want to split those so some come into here and the remainder overflow out towards storage. So it's probably going to be easier to have the copper wire on the higher belt, and then we can do our splitting and stuff on the ground level, like so. And then this is our overflow towards the front of the platform, and we'll lift that down to connect back up to here to go into storage. What we do need is another run along the front because this build is too big. And we'll also collect the outputted stators into here, and we'll add a third belt and a third storage container over there. Or stators. That should work. Okay. I'm wondering, should we run our wire along the ground and then lift it up to come in here? That's probably going to look neater than just a random belt running in the middle of the air. Or we could build a bridge and connect here to there, I suppose. Maybe that's better. Either way, it's going to want to come in at this location at that height. Except I don't like the way that conveyor belt hangs halfway off platform, so we'll do it like that instead. I can't see a particularly neat way to do it that's not going to interfere with our pathing of our belts here. Maybe we should have done this on the higher line, and then we could just have a floor hole come in here and take that into there. Oh well, doesn't matter that much. We're not going to be over here looking at this all too often. I'll tell you what, we'll put another platform up there. Fix that power in a moment. Run our copper down to the floor, down along here, and then lift it up there. That's what we'll do. Let's fix that power now so we're not clipping horribly. That's annoying. The last merger output there is just too far from the edge to make that conveyor lift look nice. There's the edge that we're looking for. Let's run it this way so it doesn't interfere with any miner that we build on the coal here. Alright, cool. That looks good. Anyway, what else I'm going to do is just drop a jump pad here. Oh, that's sad. It doesn't go high enough. Alright, let's at least put one there to get us up to the first level. Okay, this all should be doing what it's meant to be. So we set a recipe. Give it some power. Oh, right, I included power in the blueprint design. Alright, so that's taken 15 pipes per minute and 40 wire per minute. We've got 120 wire, so we can do 3 of these builds. Makes 45 of our pipes, and then we still have 115 pipes going into storage, which we can then steal later on for other stuff. Oh, I'm getting so confused about where the bounded mux goes to here. There we go. Holding control to snap is not as intuitive as it is with just one building. And also I've built this too far forward. So here is the least fun part of working with blueprints. There's something wrong and then you have to delete a whole bunch of stuff individually. Alright, let's try that all again. I'm just not seeing an indicator. We are in line here, and like the design's so big. It's, yeah. Alright, maybe if we change to blueprint mode it'll snap nicer. There we go. If you look at the edge of the bounding box towards kind of the bottom left of the screen, that looks like it's in line. That stuff just feels just ever so slightly harder than it needs to be. And then we don't really need to feed out further from there. Stators. And then these guys just need power hooking up. It's still much faster and more convenient than building all of this by hand. And then we just want to go... In fact, I built all of the designs to flow left to right and then to flow right to left in terms of the output. But we're going to want to run these straight onto another belt, like alongside these. So I think what I'll do is just dismantle these, output mergers. And have this middle one run straight forward like that. That's going to be about in line. Certainly makes more sense than running everything to the left edge to then turn it round to run back in the direction it just came from. Oh, that's Slightly less far out than I thought. Oh well. Like that, like that direction. Cool. Alright, we got stators, we got overflow pipes, we got beams. But we just need to connect to where they're going here. Okay, I did just add this awesome sink here at one point because we were producing quite a lot of steel pipes already, and the line was completely backed up. I think we will keep that, given that we've got probably full steel pipe storage here already. Yeah. The annoying thing is, when you're running belts this close to each other, if you add a splitter, go, then you end up with this situation where you run that, go to run this belt, and then you have to clip it, and it looks bad. So I think we may still do that. That's going to be our turn, right? And then we may, instead of just turning straight into there, we may lift up a level. Too far back. And then actually if we keep that up at this level 1, it means we're not clipping into the splitter. 2, it means we can actually run this belt underneath, which is important because this one is beams for our second storage thing here. And then we can do that, we can do a little crossover of them. So that our stators run into this storage. Is that an input? No, it's not. Stators. So it's bothering me that those aren't centered. I really shouldn't have done that. I should have just done the changed the element on this one. Oh well. Steel pipe. Pipes. Yeah. Cool. I hope that made sense what I was talking about with these crossing over. By the way, it's because our outmost belt here is actually going to be our middle storage container. Even then, pipes, so we're going to have to move these back a smidge anyway. Which is annoying, because 2 of the 3 of these are already relatively full. But what are you going to do? Let's have a temporary one there. Cool. That's fine, we've got the inventory space, don't need that. Copy that sign. Right, that should give us enough space to do everything we need to do here. Get rid of. Up and down. Question, can I upgrade these in place? I should upgrade them while we're still working in this area then. Oh, they're not aligned. Down a couple of stackable poles here. So that we keep the right height. Two. Maybe I should have kept that pole in. That looked a little better than it not being there. Our player is not in the way. Right, and then pipes. Yeah, back 1, 2. Now, in a perfect world, this would only be overflow. But we don't have a way to do that yet, so what I am going to do is just split out half the pipes, feed into here, and continue generating coupons for us. Right, okay, stators are done. That was not as straightforward as it could have been. But no matter. And in fact, refactor steel is also done. We don't have to worry about that bit for quite some time now. So, what have we got left to do? We've got space elevator parts to look at. So now that we've got stators coming in here, what I'm not going to worry about is getting together with automation the parts to make up the smart plates, where we've got reinforced iron plates and rotors sitting in our main storage. We've got modular frames sitting in our main storage and steel beams sitting here. I did not consider the fact that the versatile framework recipe needs steel beams. So in fact, I think we're going to have to go back and revisit that steel production there to shift the balance in favor of steel beams. Maybe. I would quite like to not do that if we can get away with not doing that. Come back to that thought in a second. Anyway, we've got modular frames in our main base. We've got steel beams right here. And then the automated wiring, we've got stators right here. We've got cables in our main base. So what I don't want to have to do is like pick a location in the middle and belt like 4 things over to some hypothetical platform here and belt all of these 3 things over there and that sort of thing, because we're only dealing with a few hundred of each. All I'm going to do is just let them collect here in storage. In fact, I've already, stolen a bunch of them anyway. And just take them over to a temporary production platform somewhere and just drop them into containers to feed into that, rather than having an ongoing automation right from the source of the parts into some production. Because once we're past this tier of space elevator, I don't think we need smart plating, versatile frameworks, or automated wiring for the next stage. Maybe we do, maybe I'm wrong about that. Anyway, to come back to the question of steel beams, we need, is it versatile framework? 500 of those, and each of them takes 12 steel beams, so that's actually tons that are needed. 500 times 12, we need 6,000 steel beams. Everything we had so far, 2, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 13, 14, 16, 17, 18, 20, 21 full stacks. Times 200, 4,200. So yeah, we need to be producing steel beams at a greater rate than the 7.5 per minute that we're dumping in here at the moment. That was a big old oversight on my part. So we won't get as far as setting up the assemblers for those space elevator parts in this episode, but before we call it for today, get down. Apologies if you heard a cat kicking off in the background of that. Before we call it for today, I'm going to shift the balance here, which shouldn't be too hard to do. All we really need to make sure is that we leave 15, 30, 45 pipes and then a few into overflow. 20, 40, 60. So if we change things over from here, set these instead to steel beams. Now we definitely don't need all 8 constructors steel beams. So in fact, let's just toggle that off. Toggle that off. I will disconnect the inputs and outputs so that we don't go later on thinking that something's happening here when it actually isn't. So where was our switchover point? Eck, get up there. These are still pipes. These are beams. So let's clear these belts and mergers. We're going to want those mergers pointing in the opposite direction now anyway. Alright, so got 90 of our 270 steel ingots are now going towards steel pipes, which leaves us 180 to work with. To steel beams, so that's actually 3 steel beam constructors, which is going to give us 45 steel beams per minute, much better than the 7.5 that we were thinking about a minute ago. Let's merge those that way, that way, that way. Don't get me wrong, it was completely an oversight on my part that we needed steel beams in high volumes for the versatile framework. But it's part of the reason why I was a little bit, like, didn't dig too far ahead into looking exactly at what we needed pipes versus beams for. It was just my gut was, hey, we'll need more pipes than beams for downstream recipes. Without going and investigating every recipe in depth, partly because I knew it would be very easy to make a change of the balance. We've got steel ingots being produced, we've got a row of constructors that are creating our 2 steel products. It's pretty easy to flip one to the other, like so. It's going to give us 60 pipes. I mean, that said, I do wish I'd looked at that versatile framework before we did all of that setup, but kind of no matter really. We're still going to get our 15 stators per minute. In fact, let's drop ourselves a little sign to remind future us of that as well. In, what was it, 45 steel beams. Alright, cool. These aren't in use. I could just completely dismantle these and, like, you know, not even worry about them. The fact is we're going to upscale our ingot production as soon as we get Mark IV belts. So for now I'm fine if these just sit here and don't do anything. I do kind of wish they showed it more clearly that they were paused, so in fact let's just disconnect the power to those and then at least we'll know we're red here for a reason. So then as soon as we do, like, upscale the miners and upscale the belts and stuff downstairs and make row of that second row of smelters we've got directly underneath us here, then we can just reconnect stuff here and then be producing pipes and beams in greater volumes. Why have we got a backlog here? Alright, well we're producing less than 60 per minute, so we don't strictly need faster belts. but also it's not going to take that many to just upgrade the entire run. Alright, and that doesn't, in all fairness, need to run for too long. Got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21. All stacks already. 4,200 of the 6,000 I think we needed, and then we're going to need some more for belts and stuff. This will run pretty quickly. We'll let it fill up another row or two in the container. And then we'll be ready to start stealing these and go and stick them in some assemblers to make those space elevator parts. So that's going to be our goal for next time. Let's get this updated here. And yeah, next episode we'll get those assemblers up and running, get ourselves to the next stage of the space elevator, and then we'll be into the next real big leap forward for tiers 5 and 6 at the hub. As always, thanks so much for watching, and I will catch you guys on the next episode of Satisfactory. Cheers.